Perhaps the most important new feature of this exciting hymn book is suggested by its title. The Worshiping Church is truly a worship book, with scripture readings, acts of worship, and prayers, all like the hymns in contemporary language. This worship material, together with all the hymns and songs, is made available for easy use through the most comprehensive indexes we have ever offered.
To the one who has to plan worship, the inclusion of many other acts of worship than hymns is a wonderful boon. Readings of Scripture, both responsive and unison, prayers, and other acts of worship that combine both speech and song are wonderful inclusions and will enrich the worship of all congregations who use this hymnal.
In the Worshiping Church, we have sought to be sensitive to the changes going on in our language in the last quarter of this century. So the hymnists of our time, Christopher Idle, Margaret Clarkson, Thomas Traeger, Brian Jeffrey Leach, Jane Parker Huber, Brian Wren, Fred Pratt Green, to name but a few, are well represented in this collection. And the scriptural readings as well are from two major translations of our time, the New Revised Standard Version and the New International Version. But we were also committed to including a wide representation of the vast store of the hymnody of God's people over the history of the church. And so the selection is equally strong and wide-ranging from the best and most loved of the 2,000 years of Christian hymn writers.
As one who's involved in planning worship from week to week, the indexes of the Worshiping Church are particularly useful in helping find hymns that go with a passage that a pastor might be preaching on, or in finding new tunes for a very familiar text. And with the metrical index in the back, in addition to the other indexes, there are actually 10. And as one who is involved every week in putting services together, I find it extremely useful and most helpful, and I'm grateful for the care and attention that's been given in preparing this part of the book.
Several adjunct volumes are available, which will enhance the ministry of the Worshiping Church. First, the Worship Leaders Edition gives helps for using the book's contents wisely, with relevant material about the hymn's writing, biblical and theological analyses of what the hymn says, and suggestions as to when and how the hymn might be used. Second, a concordance will aid in finding a hymn when you remember only a phrase of it. Third, a typical dictionary companion to the hymnal gives complete historical information about the hymn's texts and tunes, as well as the authors and composers. Finally, there are special accompaniment volumes for organ and piano, for brass instruments, and for handbells.
In the Worship Leader's Handbook, we have the background for each hymn, the meaning and significance of each of those hymns, the potential of each hymn, and the means for reaching that potential in our ministry.
Many of the hymns also are accompanied by suggestions for making their use more effective and meaningful. With these extras being located on the same page as the words and music, there is added convenience.
And I remember when I was in the pastorate, one of the frustrations I'd have in planning a particular service was trying to remember from which hymn came a particular line that came to mind, which seemed appropriate for that need. I didn't have the tool that Hope Publishing is going to make available with this hymnal, which is a concordance of all the hymns listed line by line. For instance, if a phrase came to mind from a hymn you wanted to use, you would take out of it the most unusual or distinctive word. You would look that up in an alphabetical listing in this concordance. You would then find the line, and then you would find the number of the hymn so that you could use it in the service you were planning. So the concordance is going to be a kind of recorded memory for us so that we can readily and at hand find something that we want to use in our worship preparation.
The dictionary companion includes all the historic information about each text and tune. Here one has access to the circumstances surrounding the hymn's creation, its first publishing and significant data as to alterations, etc. Biographical data about the authors and composers, translators and arrangers is also included in this most valuable resource.
We live in a time when church musicians are seeking to be much more creative in their hymn accompaniments. There is, in addition to the worshiping church, a set of accompanimental volumes, one for organ, one for handbells, one for brass instruments, with suitable hymns arranged, and I'm excited about this because this gives opportunity for involving a lot more musicians in the worship. There's a certain sense of vitality and majesty that we can get from these accompaniments, and I think that we will have a weight of glory added to the praise of God's people.